Hey everybody, welcome to Dead Reckoning. Above the pay grade, I'm Jay Friesen with the venerable, the great, the smart one in the room, Dr. Brian Mattson.
Yeah, thanks for reminding everybody.
And the good news about today's...
I wish you reminded yourself of that more often. No, go ahead.
Well, it's what's fun about today's interview is that we are nowhere even near. I probably know more about stuff than he does, which makes me feel good about today's show. We have with us the lovely, the talented Mary Caroline Mann, photographer from Atlanta, Georgia. She travels the world with bands and takes pictures of them sweating and throwing themselves over keyboards and smashing guitars and a host of other things. Mary Caroline, how are you?
How am I? I'm doing great this morning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How did you get into photographing bands? I mean, was this like you were just like went down to the clubs as a high schooler taking pictures of people? I mean, I don't know. How do you, I go to your website, by the way. What is the website URL?
MaryCarolineMann.com.
Okay, and see these fantastic, phenomenal photographs of you in massive stadium concerts on stage taking pictures of some really cool, famous musicians.
Yeah.
How does somebody get into that sort of an industry?
I did. When I was in high school, I was definitely interested, and we had a little music scene in Beaumont, Texas, surprisingly, and I would take pictures there, and it was definitely, it wasn't something I thought was a real job. I was like, maybe I'll get to do that when I'm like 45 or 50, when I, have worked in the music industry for a long time, and so I didn't really pursue it seriously, and happened to meet a guy in Beaumont, and told him, kind of we're just talking about dreams, and told him what my overall dream was. And this was when I was 18 or 19. And he looked at me, he's like, well, just email me a list of shows you want to get into, and I'll see what I can do. And I had no idea what he had been doing, but he had worked in the industry for about, I don't know, since he was like 18, and he was 25 at the time, I think. And so he just... I went in, and the first show I ever shot was Paramore, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had a Canon 5D Mark II, and I'd never used it, and I was like, was freaking out, because I was like, somebody's going to find out I shouldn't be here, and all the other photographers, do this all the time, and so I ended up overexposing almost every image, but the next day I was so excited I skipped all my classes and just edited for probably 6 hours straight and recovered them all, and it ended up helping me form kind of how I shoot anyways. So
yeah, you've got a couple of shots that I love. There's that one of like a guy literally throwing himself up on a keyboard. He's doing like a handstand on it or something. It's like, that's rad.
Yeah, it's totally
So
awesome.
you have another section on. I'm gonna put my coffee down for a second. You have another section on your website that's titled 4x3. Obviously, like the size of the photograph and the composition and stuff. But in that particular section, there is, or no, I think it's 4x5, isn't it?
4x5, yeah.
I don't think the camera nerds are going, hey, get it straight. No, but in that section, you have taken a series of photos from quite a few refugees, and you kind of like the title of the, I think you titled it like here's some refugees that are tucked away in an apartment complex in Atlanta. And I'm like, wow.
In Atlanta.
You have to find find these things, and it kind of has this, it has this core sort of mystique about it. But there's the way you've captured images tells so much of a story. And there's something about the still image that captures us as humans. It's without it, we wouldn't have, the screaming girl in Vietnam running from napalm. We wouldn't have these incredible Pulitzer Prize-winning photos.
The Marines lifting the flag at Iwo Jima.
You wouldn't have some of these things. What is it? What's your take on that? What is it about still imagery that draws us in so much as humans?
I was talking to a friend of ours last week about this, and we were just talking about, I think photographers have an ability to take chaos and kind of hone in on one part of that and make sense of the chaos, which is kind of a really neat thing, because, you might be in a crowd and see 1,000 people, but most of the time photographers, the way that they see the world and their perspective too influences that a lot. But they're able to look past, the thousands of people and see the one person and kind of narrate an entire situation that way. So.
That's terrific. So there's a certain creativity involved there that not everybody would have. That you can, just as God brings order out of the primeval chaos in Genesis, right? God is ordering things and honing in on things. There's something really truly creative about doing that. I like that, framing and making order out of chaos. That's very good.
There's an image that's kind of burned into my head. I was wandering around my in-laws' place just a couple days ago, and she's an avid reader of World Magazine, and there was an image there that said, it was a play on the words, Boston Marathon. It was like a terror marathon, or terrathon, I think is what it was. And there was a man who was bent over, kind of, sort of crying, bent over this woman on the ground. And you're just like, I was just drawn to that image, and maybe it's the emotion, maybe it's the power, maybe it's everything, my experience and everything I'm bringing into the just my
experience of seeing it,
interpretive, take on what's going on in that photo. But it seems to speak a little more than it just, moving images.
Yeah.
Says the filmmaker. So what you're really
I know,
Mary, what he's really saying is that your craft is better than his.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I think so.
So, dude, I also think that what's cool about still images is that there's something in us that yearns for eternity. We want to, time and change is so temporal and fleeting, and there's that moment. Even in film is moving through time. And when the moment's gone, it's gone. You can't get it back. And there's something that capturing a moment and freezing it. There's a longing for eternity there.
Well, there's an imaginary. I'll let you talk in here a second.
Yeah. Do we have a guest on this show, Jay? Golly.
No, that's awesome. I love it.
There's an imaginary. Feel free to interrupt anytime you want. There's an imaginary element, I think, too, when you address a still photo, because when it's a moving image, you're kind of somebody's presenting a chronology, everything that's happening, and with a still image, you're kind of looking at it going, "Wow, what's going on in there?"
Yeah.
You're filling in details.
When you approach a chaos, a scene or something, what are you looking for?
Concert.
What are you looking for? How do you approach your photography, your style?
I mean, I think there's a really big emphasis on storytelling right now. Everyone's a storyteller; they're not a photographer, and I love that. But I think you are looking for a story. So, and most days, like whether I'm walking around Atlanta or I'm walking around a concert, like I know that if I'm walking around Atlanta, then I'm looking for like what's quintessentially Atlanta, and I just kind of take whatever it is in and try and focus on the details as well as the big picture to kind of create a whole. Rather, one image could do that, but I think when you're trying to create a set of images to kind of tell a story, it kind of changes depending on where I am or what I'm doing, but mostly that, just trying to hone in.
Do you find that your faith informs how you approach your photography?
Completely. Absolutely. I think that there's something really beautiful about photography because of your experiences, because of whatever you've experienced in life up until that moment. It's going to inform how you shoot something. It's going to inform how you see things. And I think also there's just moments that come out of nowhere, and you have to know that, like, you didn't do anything to create this image. You didn't plan being there in this moment, but like it was the decisive moment, it presented itself, and there it was. And after the fact, like, you look back and you're like you were placed there for this moment to capture this thing, to tell this story, which is incredible. And then the same goes for being in the pit with 40 photographers, and the fact that you can all you're all in there, you could have the same gear, the same lens, but you're going to come out with a different image, which just kind of speaks to like being created uniquely, and just the vision you're given is, I think, from the Lord for sure.
I really like that idea of knowing that God is in control. He places us. This is not just true, it seems to me, just for photography, but this is for anybody in any walk of life or any vocation. If you have the attitude that God put me here, I'm going to be where I need to be from moment to moment.
Yeah.
It opens your eyes. I think you're exactly right. That how that would inform you, how you view what you're doing, where you are, would be revolutionary, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for a reason. There's an image I need to catch. God wants me here. You know, that's really cool. I like that. I hadn't thought of that.
And it's interesting too, because you'll hear over and over photographers, whether they believe in Jesus or not, a lot of times they're very spiritual, and they're very, this moment was given to me and destiny, put me here. And you sit there and you listen to them and you're like, no, like you don't even understand. Like they describe the Lord and their process, but it's a different.
Yeah.
They see it that way.
Wow. So tell us what you got any exciting events coming up? Any exciting photo shoots? Any bands that you're, I don't know, touring with, following around? What are you doing?
There's a couple of local bands that we've been working with that we're really excited about. And I say we because my fiance and I have been working a lot together. But
is he a photographer as well?
Yeah, he does a lot
cool.
of video more so, but he's a photographer, a videographer. He does it all. And last week, and I love that we're talking about kind of storytelling. Last week I did a shoot with this singer-songwriter named Steve Mokler in Nashville, and did it for a PACE thing, but was able to talk to him about storytelling. And we were just talking about self-promotion and how hard it is being an artist, and how it kind of feels a little icky to always be pushing yourself to the front and being like, look at this story. And so he was saying he's doing this amazing tour with his wife. They got an old Winnebago. They've invited the fans to be the venue and kind of run the show. And they're just pulling up into backyards, into, parking lots, like whatever it is, and playing shows. And he was like, I kind of resolved to the fact that if I don't want to be always doing self-promotion, I should just tell good stories, and the stories will tell themselves. And I was like, yes, that's it. Like, live a good story and it's going to promote itself, and you don't always have to be playing the look at me and what I'm doing game. So
right.
That's really true. I mean, there's a lot to be said for just doing things really, really well.
Yeah.
And just by focusing
and being
on your
obscure
craft
for the rest of your life.
There's the element
we do this show over and over and over, week after week after week, and we just try to do it well.
There is the element. There is the element of popularity and needing some of that pop stuff behind it. But I think there's a stronger purpose behind it. I'm reminded of our pastor on Sunday. Brian and I go to the same church. Yeah. He was preaching about some government stuff, because we're in the book of Romans, and he made a comment. He said, just by doing what you do for the glory of God and doing it well, and doing it well is my tag, and doing it well and excellently, you are creating culture yourself. Yeah. I mean, you're creating a Christian culture just by doing that. That culture sort of comes from you. And so story and all this stuff kind of plays into that, because if you tell that story well, doesn't matter really. I mean, it
God
matters,
sees it. God sees it. Nobody else needs to see it. I mean, it has ultimate meaning and significance, doesn't it? Because God sees what you did and what you made.
Right.
My daughter will sit in our basement, coloring for hours. Okay, I will not see her. She's 6 years old. I probably don't see 80% of the drawings that she does. Right, but God does. It's a meaningful, significant piece of art because she's doing it and God is there with her. Right.
Right. I agree. So what's been one of your favorite excursions in the world of photography, and why was that?
Last year around this time, I went out with the Passion World Tour, and we just were in South Africa and Uganda, and I don't think I'll ever top this moment in Uganda. Is just we're in the middle of Kampala, Uganda, in a college. I think it was just like a recreational field type thing, and there's thousands of students pouring in, and we climbed up to the top of one of the dorm rooms behind us, and we're walking, and just being in Kampala, it's it's a world of difference. It's hard to even know that that's what's happening day in and day out for most people. And but we're climbing to the top, and we got to just be behind all of the students while they were singing, and just being in that moment and getting a picture from behind and kind of above of what was happening. And even though it was so small, it was just a really significant night, I think. And I remember praying, I was like, I just hope when I'm taking these photos that somehow, some way on the other end, when people are looking at them, they can feel the emotion that, we're all feeling in this moment, that they can see and hear these students' voices. And it was just such a massive night of a picture of joy in the midst of extreme poverty and hardship. And so it was just a really special night.
That context really makes a powerful story.
Yeah, it really does. I'd like to. Can we see these pictures? Are these pictures on your website?
They're actually not. They're kind of hidden. I haven't put up half of the things. I'll probably be slowly rolling them out, but.
Great. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on the website to see your work and see what you put up. I mean, our viewers definitely should check it out. Mary Caroline Mann, double N.com, to see some of her really terrific photography.
Terrific. And where else can people kind of follow you and stalk you and stay up to date?
Instagram, big Instagram fan, and Twitter, Mary Caroline M. That's my handle for both. And then mcmblog.com.
mcmblog.com.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
And congratulations on the recent engagement.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Do we have a date?
November 30th.
It's coming up fast.
Nice.
Excellent.
Nice.
My
love those short engagements.
My anniversary is the 27th of November, so
That's great.
Pretty great time of year to get married, I must say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got married at the end of August, right at the end of August.
Okay.
So, But anyway, doesn't matter. Mary Caroline, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Great.
As always, you're a joy to talk to when I do end up conversing with you on Twitter about random things.
Yeah, absolutely a privilege to have you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I loved it.
Good.
And if you would like to follow Brian and I on Twitter, I'm Jay Friesen, Friesen, and Brian is Dr. Cocky. I'm kidding.
I'm at Brian G. Matson. No doctor in there.
And Dead Reckoning TV, check out the other episodes. We put up the Spindle this week, as well as Brian's commentary where he's continuing his discussion on the Apostles' Creed, conceived by the Holy Spirit. You can follow that at deadreckoning.tv. Again, I'm Jay Friesen.
I'm Brian Matson.
And this is Dead Reckoning.